How's it going, everybody? It's Catfish and Ice. It's episode 275 with your host, Chad Minton, and guest co-host, Boyd of Penalty Box Radio, back on the podcast. His camera just dropped out, but there he is right there. What's up, man? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. You know, it's the time of the year. Training camp's getting fired up. Hockey's around the corner. Football's in full swing. Can't argue with it.
Oh, yeah. We're about to be overly inundated with so much sports. And if hockey is your first sport, then NFL takes a back seat. College football takes a back seat. But, you know, it is that great time of year where, you know, football kind of is like the appetizer if you're a hockey fan first. But, yeah, we're going to have so much on our plates right now. Sorry to the baseball fans and the tennis fans and no disrespect. I know there's been plenty of sports, but yeah, it's about to get really serious now. And it's like got first day school vibes is what a lot of the reporters say out there, because training camp the players reported today for the Nashville Predators. We just had the prospect tournament, which real quick, just before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this episode here, Boyd, a lot of good stuff. We got to see a lot of prospects that are actually not that far away from really being in the starting lineup for the Nashville Predators, maybe in a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's the unique group of prospects that the Predators have had now for a couple of years, with the amount of first-round picks that they've had and just the number of people, you know, that are just getting closer to NHL ready, and the amount of talent there. They bring a serious group. But, you know, it is fun that probably the most noticeable outside of, you know, maybe Joachim Kemmel was Oasis Weisblatt, who was just an absolute menace in the two games that he played in the best way possible. And, you know, obviously we would be remiss not to give heartfelt condolences to their family on the loss of their brother and everything that they are certainly going through. But yeah, it was really fun just to see them back on the ice and see them playing. You know, you get to see a first kind of real glimpse of, you know, what might be there with number 5 pick Brady Martin. You know, definitely looked the part. You know, physically being in the right places, making plays, which, you know, you certainly love to see. And, you know, now it's just now that that's in the rear view, time to get going on main camp, which is where all the fun starts.
And, you know, the prospect tournament, yeah, of course, condolences and prayers and everything to the Weisblatt family. Just horrific and horrible. And our thoughts are with them, of course. And, you know, Ozzy, really cool family, and just a group of brothers who play hockey and play it hard in the right way. But Ozzy, of course, is the highest up in terms of the Predators pipeline. A guy who has a very strong chance of making this team, of course. And but when it comes to the prospect tournament, you saw Ozzy scored and was chirping at I think it was the Hurricanes prospects. You saw that on social media. You love that he carries that chip on his shoulder. But you saw Brady Martin score a penalty shot goal. You saw Andrew Gibson score a goal, who's another one high up on the prospect pipeline. And, of course, Kemmel, who just really made his presence known, is probably the elder.
That goal that Kemmel scored was thing
and
of
he's kind of And he's kind of the elder statesman of this group, right? Like, I mean, he's definitely got a great chance of making the roster. So, yeah, good stuff there. Always take it with a grain of salt. These guys are getting their feet wet. Of course, you always want to see them win. But let's not, like, get overworked about, like, you know, wins and losses so much. But, yeah, good stuff to just see them playing. And now we get preseason hockey. Now we get training camp, which they hit the ice tomorrow. We're recording this on September 17th, a Wednesday night. So for people who come back later. But, yeah, good stuff here. So here's what we got in store for you for episode 275 of Catfish and Ice with our awesome guest co-host, Boyd of Penalty Box Radio. We're going to really – the main opening face-off topic of tonight is going to be preseason superlatives. I've collected several superlatives that I have for players. I'll put them on the screen for Boyd, and Boyd can look at them and give his thoughts on my choices. That's how we're going to do this. He doesn't know my choices. Well, maybe I did put them on X, I guess, but either way, he's going to give his reaction on those. And honestly, each one you can pick 2 or 3 guys. So I mean, it's going to be a fun debatable topic there. And then we got to give our Evangelista update, which is a weekly update now. It's a weekly segment on this podcast until he does get signed. We should just go ahead and call it the weekly Evangelista update. That should be a new permanent segment on this podcast until he gets signed. But I feel like we're getting closer, but it keeps lingering and lingering. So we do at least have to kind of get into it a little bit more. And then also want to talk about the most important area, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can talk about here. But the most important area that the Predators can improve in this year, if we just pick one, fix this, and then we'll focus on everything else. Me and Boyd are going to talk about that. And then also, we're going to do some rapid-fire top storylines around the NHL going into the season. And then, Boyd is a fellow Vandy fan. And I think that's actually how I, way back when, I'm talking like, I don't know how long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I really don't know. I actually stumbled across Boyd's Twitter profile because he was tweeting about Vandy. I actually remember it because before I got involved in tweeting a lot and covering the Nashville Predators, I really was more one of those Twitter users that I would get on there and I would read a bunch of stuff. I would maybe retweet every now and then, but I never posted. And if I did, it was very random. But I want to say that I remember you always tweeting about Vandy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you being a fellow Vandy fan. And I followed mostly Vandy accounts when I first got on Twitter. And then I started following Titans and Preds and all the other things. And then I got involved with what I do now. But so we're going to talk about Vandy 3-0. I mean, and we'll talk about Titans too. We'll talk about it all because a lot of the people.
Well, let's be fair. If it was 2 or 3 years ago, I probably wasn't saying a lot of positive things.
Well, fair enough. But either way, it's a Nashville podcast. Either way, we're Preds, but also a lot of our people also like Vandy. They like the Titans. They like the Vols. But we'll save that for the very end when we get through. So anyway. Real quick, before we really get into it, just learn something really cool. Like this is why I always believe everything is just goes through the universe and happens for a reason. But just learn. So I just got back last week. I'm trying to get caught up in everything. Just got back. I went to a trip out west. Never been to this part of the country. All my friends were like, "You went there for your vacation? Like the most random place ever?" And it's like, first of all, I live 10 minutes from the beach. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying it how it is. I can get in my car anytime I want and drive to the beach. It's great, but it also, you take it for granted and it gets overrated after a while. So I was like, where do I want to go on vacation that's not out of the country? And I wanted to go somewhere I've never been before. So I settled, based on a couple friend recommendations, to go to Boise, Idaho, people. And let me tell you, it is a very hidden secret, especially if you love nature and you love being out in the middle of nowhere. Now, Boise has a beautiful downtown. I'm not making commission. I don't work for a travel agency, I swear. But what was really cool is right before we went live, Boyd, tell the audience like the connection here.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, my wife's uncle was the athletic director at Boise State for about 30 years. And for anyone who's watched college football, knows, obviously Boise State has been part of a few pretty notable games and also was the originator of the not green football field. So he was the one who put in the blue football field at Boise State. I can say I've been down on that field. Apparently the birds that fly and crash into it is an urban myth. Apparently that's not actually a real thing.
Good. That's good to know. I didn't see any birds crashing into the blue turf, so I can validate that.
But yeah, I mean, it's I got to go to a college game day there once. It was a blast.
Oh,
It was so
cool.
much fun. And yeah, Boise's a beautiful city. Tons of trees.
It
You're kind of in the foothills of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on the West Coast, so I've certainly.
I went up to Table. So, Boyd, you'll appreciate this. I hiked up to Table Rock.
Yeah, there you
go. Which is a big selling point there, of course. And I found out how quickly I am not in as best a shape as I should be. And I also found out that going down is way easier than going up. But I got so I was there for 4 days. I wanted to do it on the second day, and I took a Lime Uber scooter all the way down the Greenbelt, down the Boise River. So beautiful. Did that every day I was there, actually, because I stayed downtown Boise. I rode up and down the Greenbelt and walked and took a scooter and stuff. Like every day I was there, I did that because I just could not appreciate it enough how beautiful that is. And did the Idaho State Penitentiary tour, which was really cool. Felt like I was in Shawshank Redemption. And then the trailhead to Table Rock is right there. And I underestimated the fact that I did not have enough. Hardly had any water. And I got like 25% up and I'm like sweating and have no water. And I'm like, should I really try to get all the way up there? So I was like, I'm going to come back another day.
The air's thinning out. So
I'm like, I'm going to be better prepared and have a full thing of water. I'm going to do this. So I ended up doing it the last day I was there and got to the top, and it was totally worth it to just see the landscape and see the untouched beauty that nature has to provide. And so, highly recommend breaking away from your normal go on a cruise, go to the beach, go to your normal vacations, and check out Idaho or any part of that country, part of the country out there. It is beautiful, and I'm so glad I went. And but I'm also going to say I have a lot of pet peeves real quick about flying, because I fly once a year, and flying from Tampa, Florida to Boise, Idaho, I think you can imagine there's not a lot of options when it comes to flights, especially direct. So I had to have a connection in Dallas. And so I'm just going to share some of my top pet peeves about flying. Boyd, you can chime in if you want. But my top one is definitely when you land, everyone stands at the same time when you land. Even no matter what part of the plane you're in, everyone stands up like they're going to get off the plane at the same time. And it's like, guys, I always stay in my seat. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm always in Group 9 when I fly American. I don't know why. I think American Airlines hates me.
I think it's because you fly one time a year.
Probably. But I was literally second to last row on one leg of my journey. And everyone stands up at the same time. I'm like, guys, we're not going anywhere. Another common pet peeve, but I think 99% of people agree with this. When you get the dreaded middle seat, that's going to make you want to spend the extra $30 to buy a window seat, probably. Let's see. Always ending up with the last boarding group. I just said that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Again, tied to when you're in the last group. When you're in the last group and you're like seeing all these people, this stampede of people getting on this plane, and you're looking out the window and you're like, that plane ain't that big. They ain't going to fit me on there. And then you're standing around the gate, and it's like you and like two other dudes, and we're like, we're it. We're getting on the plane right now. That's just some of my pet peeves. Another one is when you're on a connecting flight and the airline gives you like 5 minutes if you sprint to get to your connection. That's another bad one. And actually, this happened to me on the way back to Tampa. I was sweating running and Dallas Fort Worth Airport is, it's a little too much for me when I don't fly.
It's not
when
small.
I don't fly. When you don't fly very often, DFW is a little too much for me. But anyway, some of my pet peeves of flying. Luckily, I don't fly very often, but it was a good time. Needed a little disconnect before it's NHL season now, and I'm ready to go, and I'm excited. And so let's get it to you here. Let's get this episode out to you with our co-host here, Boyd. And let's get it going with the superlatives. Actually, you know what? Let's save the superlatives until we really give the Luke Evangelista update, because I think we got to get that out of the way if you're cool with that, Boyd.
Yeah,
And
do it.
I'm going to say the latest, like for the longest time, we've had no really not a lot of news really about Evangelista. It's been really kept lock and key what's going on here. But there you have it. This was a couple days ago from the fourth period, David Pagnotta, and kind of dropped a little bit of some news you don't want to hear. Gap remains, contract talks, basically saying the two sides remain far apart. That was on September 14th, so just a couple days ago. Which side caves first here, Boyd? What do you think? I mean, if we're talking about term.
Yeah, I mean, I think ironically, I mean, this situation seems to have played out almost exactly how you and I and Max talked about it a number of weeks ago, where the Predators are looking to sign him longer term, which, you know, you have to imagine he's not going to command a huge AAV to begin with. So you're looking at the old, David Poyle, Calle Yarncroke, Colton Sisson special of, let's see if I can get you up for 7 years for under $3 million.
That's a really good comparison right there. Colton Sisson, wow.
And if you're Luke Evangelista, like, there is absolutely no reason to sign that kind
Why
of
would I? Yeah, and that's like that
cap exploding with, obviously he's expected to be a higher offensive output player. So, I mean, there's just no reason for him to accept that kind of contract. And
that's what I've been trying to tell people, like, I get it. Like that, I get where people are coming from to an extent in terms of, like, they're like, what has this guy done? This guy's done nothing on the league level. Who's he to just be commanding this contract, and he's holding out? But let's just remember, the NHL is so much different than like guys holding out in the NFL or the NBA. That's at least how I read it. Like, Evangelista, this is his first contract out of his ELC. Let's keep it to that first. And second of all, this new deal is really not about AAV. It's not like Evangelista is holding out for like all this insane money. At least this is how I read it, Boyd, is he's not holding out to get like to be the next biggest, highest paid player. He's wanting protection for himself to not be trapped in a contract. And I do think that it says a lot about the state of the Nashville Predators, at least how he views it. And he has every right to feel that way. I mean, we're doing it as fans and as people who write and cover this team. We see it. We know the state of the Nashville Predators right now is not in a good place. So why doesn't this player have a right to feel that way? I mean, I side with Luke Evangelista more than I do with the Predators brass, who wants to lock him up for however many years they're searching for.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's probably and also just career management version, which, not to make a direct comparison, but, you look at the contracts that someone like Austin Matthews has signed. He's not signing 8-year contracts. He's signing 3, 4, 5-year contracts.
Yeah.
You look at some of the, more of the bridge type deals that guys are signing in their younger years. Like, there's just no reason for him to sign for longer term right now when, he hasn't reached his peak and he's UFA eligible in, 3 to 4 years. He's much better served signing a 3x3, basically bet on himself, go produce. And when he's 26, he's in line for a much, much bigger contract. And what's kind of funny is when you look at it from Nashville's perspective, I mean, obviously, yeah, you would love to sign everybody for 8 years for $1 million per, but that's not the reality of it. When even, let's assume for a moment that Luke Evangelista, hits his stride, hits his ceiling, figures it out, becomes a 60 to 70 point player. If in 3 years you have a free agent forward who's a 70-point player, great. You're paying market value for a very good, highly productive player. That's not the worst position to be in,
I agree.
or at the very least, if that person, if that player is like, I'm ready to go to free agency, then you've got a very, very valuable player at a low cap hit that, you can get a haul for in some type of trade, kind of, based on where you are as a team in that moment. So I get why Barry Trotz would say, hey, this guy's young. He hasn't hit his peak yet. Let's lock him in at a lower AAV. But there's no reason for Evangelista to sign that contract. And I think at the end of the day, the team's not going to just let him sit. There's nobody is served well by that.
Absolutely.
So, I would expect somewhere in the coming days, we're going to see it resolved.
But that's where I come. So I agree with you on that. But that's why I'm like, this is yet another situation where Trotz is showing his inexperience, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of working in a front office. And I love the guy. What he, no matter what he really does as a general manager, I'm always going to appreciate what he did to be the first head coach of this franchise and what he meant to being a head coach in this league. But I can treat it as two different things. But this is just, for me, optics wise, it might not affect this team at all in the grand scheme of things. If, like what you're saying, boy, he gets signed in a couple of days. Hey, we all shake hands in the end. Hey, it should have never gone that far. Everything's fine and good. But the optics of this is just so bad right now, because this franchise already has a bad reputation of mishandling young talent. And then they also have a bad reputation of drafting young talent to begin with. So they're just doing it again. It's like they never learn from their mistakes. And I get it. There's pushback here. A lot of people don't believe in Evangelista in terms of they think he's undersized. They think that, but again, you've got to see what you got in him. And you're going to get a very manageable AAV, regardless of what this contract ends up being. It's not going to be a crazy AAV. The Predators have plenty of money to get this contract done. It's not going to mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. And you're banking on the fact that Evangelista can break through the mold here and finally be a guy that you drafted, not defensemen, but forwards, who can break through and be something special for you. And he feels a major need for the starting lineup. If you look at the starting lineup right now, he feels a major need that you really, really have a massive void in right now in that top six. And he's got the goal scoring ability. He's got the talent. Now you've got to get this deal done. But again, I think it's just the fact that Trotz has let this linger this deep. I blame Trotz more than I blame the player. You can say that I'm wrong on that. That's fine. That we can have a difference of opinion on that. But for me, it should have never gotten this far to begin with. You bluffed. If you're Trotz, you bluffed. You saw what you could get. And for what? You're going to end up caving to Evangelista most likely, because as you just said, Boyd, and I agree with you, you're not going to let this guy sit. You're not going to let this linger into regular season games and just let this guy sit. That would really be a disaster. So yeah. I think Trotz is going to end up caving, and probably, what do you think, Boyd? Like 2 years? You think he's going to get 2 or 3 years? I always said 3 years would be preferable for me.
I think 3 makes more sense for Evangelista, just because that gets him closer to his UFA timeline. If I don't think 2 makes any sense. I think it's going to be 3 or 1. But what I think is especially interesting, as we all sort of point the finger at Barry Trotz being the kind of the head of the hockey operations, is his assistant GMs haven't changed from the David Poile era. Most notably, the assistant GM who is in charge of contracts and salary cap is none other than Brian Poile. So, it's obviously ultimately Barry Trotz is the decision maker, and is calling the strategy there. It's just kind of a fascinating circumstance of when you look at the situation where they're seemingly trying to sign him to the Colton Sissons special. The person in charge of contracts is the son of the GM who signed the Colton Sissons special.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously we're not existing behind the closed doors, and ultimately I think it will get resolved. Everybody will say, hey, it's a negotiation, it's business. We wanted two different things, but we figured it out and we resolved it. And, at the end of the day, as long as this doesn't linger like into October, into November, it's not going to have a significant negative impact. But, and there's I'm sure some level of a statement that Barry Trotz is making of this is how I'm going to negotiate with restricted free agents. I'm not just going to sign people to whatever they want. So I mean, it's an interesting situation. I'm surprised it's gotten to this point, just because, compared to some of the other RFAs,
we're all surprised.
There, like
we're definitely
Mason
all
McTavish
surprised.
or Mason McTavish or Luke Hughes or Marco Rossi earlier in the summer, who had more significant track records of success, and you can see where those might be harder contracts to navigate. This feels like this one should be pretty simple. And
thank you.
Shouldn't require this much, this much back and forth, this much, just misalignment on what this kind of deal should be. So
and you just have to wonder. You just have to wonder, how is this going to affect Evangelista's psyche? Because these guys are all human. I know we like to think that they are all just like robots and they go in there and they don't think about outside noise. But it's like, you just have to think, if you do sign this contract at the last minute, we're already into training camp now and we still don't have an official deal. Let's say he signs it before the regular season starts, which we all expect, but we've expected it to happen 3 weeks ago too. So it's like, but let's say it happens. You just have to wonder, like, how's that going to affect his psyche? Like you said, boy, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But it is fascinating to me that it's lingered this long. And it's also just makes me wonder, what else is going on. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe it's nothing. He gets signed and he has a breakout year, and I really hope that happens. But we're going to move on here now in episode 275 of Catfish on Ice, and we're going to get into the opening face-off, the main meat and potatoes of this episode, and that is the superlatives that I have come up with, for the Predators, just like we saw in the yearbook when we were all in high school, the superlatives that I never won. But my first superlative, put it on the screen here, is going to be most likely to overperform. And I chose Jonathan Marchessault as my, and I had a couple options here. But I went with Jonathan Marchessault because I do think that this guy still has a couple years left in him, even more so than I think Steven Stamkos does for sure. And he's going to be playing on the top line. I think him and Forsberg are going to have a much better year together. And we just have to figure out if Ryan O'Reilly still has a little bit left in the tank. But I think Marchessault and Forsberg are going to have a really good year together. And I think that stock is maybe further down on Marchessault than it should be. If you look at his numbers last year for a really bad Predators team, they're actually not that bad. There it is right there. Compared to his Vegas year, yeah, he dropped. Everyone on this team dropped. But 78 games, 21 goals. You'd like to see his goal scoring go up. Absolutely. I think that's where he can overperform. But 21 goals, 35 assists, 56 points. I think he's a really easy choice for me to say this guy is most likely to overperform. Boyd, what do you think?
I mean, it's an interesting way to look at it. And I think, I did a bit of analysis earlier this summer and I looked at primarily the three major free agent signings of Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea. And I said, okay, let's not assume they're going to get back to where they had been the previous year before coming to Nashville, where let's keep in mind, in 23-24, they were Stamkos and Marchessault were both 40 goal scorers. So it's, I kind of thought, okay, maybe they're not doing that again, but if they can get 10% better, that's it, 10%. All of a sudden, you look at someone like Marchessault, 21 goals becomes 25 goals. 35 assists becomes 42 assists. Or whatever, just about 40 assists. And 56 points goes over 60. And if you have a winger that is scoring 25 goals and getting over 60 points and is making in the $5+ million range, you're fine. That's great. Nailed it. Good.
Bang for your buck.
Bang for your buck. Stamkos, he had, I think, 27 goals, if memory serves, and was 5th in the NHL in power play goals. So 10% better. Now he's over 30. Okay, maybe he's not getting back to 40, but if he's over 30 goals, pushing 60 points, yeah, you'd like a little more from someone making $8 million, but it's not terrible. Like, you're okay. And with Brady Shea, again, 10% better. And I don't remember his numbers exactly offhand, but 10% better gets him into the upper 30s of points. And again, obviously you'd like a little more offensive output, but if he's playing good defense alongside that,
it's also a lot harder to grade a defenseman in terms of just points and stuff.
Offensive production.
But he did come in riding a pretty good wave with the Carolina Hurricanes.
50 to 60 point defenseman.
One thing to remember about all three of these guys, and I fell victim to it. I'll agree. I bought the Kool-Aid last offseason. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't. But all three of these guys, I'm not making excuses for them. They all could have played a lot better. But they all came from really, really good situations. All three of them came from Stanley Cup contenders and came to a team who wasn't a Stanley Cup contender before they joined them. And then we all threw them together and shook it up like we thought it was going to all work and stick. And guess what? Year one, it didn't stick. This team went off to an 0-5 start. And the
Magic 8 Ball said, my sources say no.
And what's crazy is they won 5 in a row. Then I think they won 3 in a row. But then we were all thinking, okay, maybe they can it's still early. We all kept saying it's still early. It's still early. It's still early. I mean, my guy Willie Donick. My guy Willie Donick. My guy Willie Donick. I love him. He's one of the most optimistic guys ever, and I love him for it. But he kept saying it's still early. It's still early. It's still early. And then eventually we were all saying, it's not early anymore.
It's not early anymore. Yeah.
But they dug themselves so deep, and I think a big problem with this team was they just had no chemistry early on, and they were going up against teams who clearly had better chemistry, and chemistry is so important in hockey. But in terms of my likely to overperform, I'm going to go with Jonathan Marchessault. I think you could also, it's hard on this superlative because so many guys underperformed on this team. Pretty much everyone did. It's you have a lot of choices to make on who can quote unquote overperform. Yeah. You can't pick Forsberg because the guy's already operating at maximum level. But what do you think, Boyd? Throw in another guy you could maybe pick.
I initially really kind of wanted to pick Justin Barron, just because
that's a good one.
When you look at his numbers and just kind of watching him play, obviously there's some defensive things that needed to improve, but when he was on the ice, offense happened. So that was one of the things my first game to, but also he's going to be, likely third pair, may not be playing every night. So it's probably not the best pick. The name that I thought of, is going to perform beyond what's expected of them which is why I didn't kind of pick one of the big three, big four forwards, because we know what we expect of them. The name that came to mind for me was Zach Larue. And he is, I'm going to assume he's not going to end up on the fourth line. He's going to end up getting, probably third line time, a third, I mean, truthfully, a third line of Howla, Bunting, and Zach Larue sounds like an absolute menace to deal with. I
can't wait.
That sounds like a really bad time for opponents.
I love that. Yeah, sign me up for that.
He's flashed, a good bit of skill, works really hard. You have to assume, with another summer of growing, and hopefully, you assume most of these guys have been around each other for the last few weeks. I know at the European Player Tour, I think Philip Forsberg was saying a bunch of the guys were already back in town and starting to skate together. So, that's someone to me who, put up, a little bit of rookie numbers. We're not evaluating good or bad. It was rookie numbers. Would it shock me if he, drop down, and put away, 12 to 15 goals and 25 points? It's not blowing the roof off, but for a guy who's, really still sort of making his way, I think that would be a really kind of unexpected boost to the overall production. So nice. that was sort of the name when I thought of like who's going to exceed expectations. I really thought about Zach Larue there,
and that would be awesome to see that happen. I mean, how can you, as an old school Predators fan, how can you not love Zachary Larue, especially considering kind of where he was at before he made it to the NHL. He was going through some disciplinary issues on the ice, mind you. Let's remember that. It's very different than off the ice disciplinary. He just couldn't keep his emotions in check. We were always worried about, could he do that? But you also don't want to change what makes him such a great player. You're like toting that line of like, yes, please keep that energy. Please keep that great part of your game. But also sometimes you got to tone it back a little bit, dude. And I saw a little bit of that last year, actually. He's got the swagger. He's got the so let's see. Hey, man, you got me thinking right now. Bunting, Holla, and LaRue. Hey, I don't know how many goals that line's going to score, but they are going to be a wrecking ball. So good stuff there. All right, let's move on to the next one, the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to superlatives on this one. And that is player most likely to underperform. And let me preface this by saying that this is in no way me. I am one of the biggest fans of this player. I'm just going off the circumstances. And put on the screen right there, for me, it's Roman Josi. And the reason why is because I'm not sure how 100% he's really going to be. But he is still, for me, top 5 offensive defenseman in the league. Not all around defenseman, but offensively speaking, he is just 1 year removed from putting up what was it, 80 plus points. So the guy can still stack up the points. He can stack up the assists, especially on the power play. But I'm just worried about his health, and I'm worried that the grind of the season might get to him. And it's not even just about his unfortunate syndrome with the POTS syndrome. It's really just about age in general. I'd be probably putting him on here even without that diagnosis. I just think that Father Time is undefeated, the cliche goes, and we still hold him in such a high regard. I as well hold him in a high regard. And I'm worried that this could be a year where we actually finally see the mortal Roman Josi. We actually see that he's not immortal, because none of us are, and that maybe he's not the same defenseman that he's given us for all these years, because he's getting older. And I'm afraid this might be the first year, regardless of what he's dealing with, just age in general, that maybe he just can't do it anymore. And I hope I'm wrong on that. But when I look at underperformance, again, this is a tough superlative to pick because everyone underperformed on this team. So how do I go even more underperforming? Yossi only played 53 games last year. And actually, he wasn't. I mean, you look at his numbers, he was still putting up the assist on the power play. It's not like he was awful before his injury that he took from Sam Bennett, the concussion that brought this whole thing up. But I'm just worried that it's eventually going to catch up to him, and it might be this year when it starts to happen.
I wonder, just given, kind of all the things you've mentioned, he's up there in years a little bit. Obviously, he's dealing with some health history. Yeah, it's not a hockey thing to do. It's very much a basketball thing to do. I wonder if they load manage him a little bit.
I hope they do.
And
I worry about him. I really worry about the human. I worry about the human in this more than I worry about the player. I really do.
I mean, if you have back-to-backs or, a game travel day, long travel day to then another game, it would be interesting to see if, especially if, let's say for the sake of argument, they get off to a good start and they're in the playoff mix, and, come January, February, and you're sort of in one of those spots, I actually wonder if they would maybe load manage him a little bit just to ease some of the strain. I mean, the fact is the Predators as it stands today defensively are incredibly deep.
They are. You're right.
Of NHL caliber defensemen that, if you needed guys to step in for a game or two, just to give him a break, like, you can do that without, obviously you're taking a very, very good defenseman off the ice, but you're not pushing in a, low end AHL call up. They've got 9 NHL caliber defensemen right now. So, I mean, there's definitely some ways they could do that.
I'm looking at real quick, Boyd. I'm just looking at his ice time before the injury last year, and he was at 25:02. And I was just looking back at previous years. The year before, he played all 82 games in 2023-24, put up 85 points. That was what I was referencing. I remember that he was not far removed from being an 80-plus point defenseman. 62 assists. I mean, come on now. But 24:38 ice time. He's always been a workhorse, but I'm just looking at his average ice time. It's always my point is they didn't load manage him at all last year. That's for damn sure. Like, he was still eating up all the minutes that he always has done throughout his career. We did not see a dip at all. I just wanted to double check to see what he's always been a mid 24s to low 25s. And then early in his career, he's actually doing over 26 minutes a game. But even at 34, my point is, even at 34 years old, you were not seeing any load management for Roman Yossi. So I just wanted to double check.
I mean, and it's, like I said, it's generally not a hockey thing to do. But in terms of the type of player he is, and if you're trying to put him in the best position to be successful, it might be an interesting thing to consider of just, can you find that, 8 to 10 games over the course of the season that are the back end of a back-to-back or a long travel where, maybe you just let him have one. And, you're making sure that he's, in his top form for 68 to 72 games instead of,
you know what player I think of in terms of being ready to take those minutes when Roman Yossi doesn't play. Obviously, it's Brady Shea, but another player actually I'm thinking about, and I know you'll appreciate this, boy, but it's Adam Wilsby for me. I mean, let's see what this guy's made of, and he looked really good before he had an injury last year. So that's a guy that I'm like, and when you speak of the depth of this defense, you're absolutely right, Boyd. I mean, you look at I'm not saying they're all top line wrecking balls, but like, they've got a lot of options with their defensemen right now. Like, actually, they're going to have to make some really tough decisions
Yeah,
to
I mean,
to
I
when it
would
comes to
not
their
be shocked at the start of the year they're carrying 8 defensemen, just
I
because
mean,
that's where the organizational depth is at the NHL
yeah,
level.
absolutely.
And obviously we'll get to waiver candidates here in a bit, but
Yep, we will.
yeah, that's definitely there.
Who's another guy you got that might be most for you where you're like, this guy might underperform this year?
Yeah, that's been
Tough
tough.
question.
I'm well, and I'm trying to think of it as
And we're being
underperforming.
negative. I get it. We don't want to be negative, but
Well, it's not so much that I don't want to make a hot take out of it. That's like, oh,
of course.
Philip Forsberg's not going to have 95 points.
For
So he's
me, I'm
underperforming.
not trying to be a hot take with Roman Yossi. I just think it seems
No,
like it's
I think
lining up
that's
that way.
I think that's reason. I mean, compared to what
You can
would
agree with
expect.
me. You don't have to pull something
Yeah.
out of thin air if you don't. But
No, I mean, I think mine might be. I might say Cole Smith.
okay.
And just in terms of, have we seen the best of what he's capable of? And sort of like, I mean, obviously he didn't reach the goal scoring peak that Tanner Jeannot did, but in a similar vein, kind of the wrecking ball player you're hoping to unlock a little bit more. And at a certain point, you just don't see anything more. And, it's not that he can't be a useful player somewhere, but, at one point do you look at, this is what his ceiling is, and then look at the next man up and say, well, he's 27, 28. This guy's 22. Let's give the 22-year-old a shot and see if he can give us something more. So, in terms of, maybe versus expectations, and, maybe expectations for him aren't that high, but, in terms of, most likely to fall off from where we've seen them, it could be someone like Cole Smith.
I also feel like he's got a little bit more competition this year in terms of his spot. When you think about guys like even Matthew Wood, who we haven't talked about yet. I mean, he's got some competition in terms of holding off some of these younger players. When I think about when Trot says we got younger guys, it's their turn. I think about, okay, well, who are they realistically going to steal spots from? And I think about a guy like Cole Smith possibly. So let's get to the next one. This one's going to make people laugh, and there's plenty of choices here because fans are going to say, oh, I'm pissed off the entire team. So how are you going to make me pick one player? But that's what makes this fun. So my choice for the player that's most likely to piss off fans the most this year, and man, there's a lot of choices you can pick here. And you can even throw in Andrew Burnett, possibly. He's the head coach. You can count him as a player. You can say Barry Trotz, the GM, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's all open game here. And this one's like you have more options here than any of the other superlatives, I feel like. But for me, I'm going off of not just how I feel, just what I think the fans feel. And is there any other choice? Is there any other choice than Steven Stamkos? I mean, this guy has become the new punching bag that Matt Duchene left behind, I feel like. And I'm not saying they're the exact same players and they're in the exact same situations, but like when Matt Duchene came in, he had all this hype. He was in a very different part of his career. They're definitely apples to oranges in terms of where they're at in their careers. And it's certainly Steven Stamkos is way more of a future Hall of Famer than Matt Duchene is. So I'm not necessarily comparing the players. I'm just saying, like, I feel like they get the similar amount of sometimes justified criticism and sometimes unjustified criticism. And so for me, I feel like the table is set too perfectly for as soon as crap starts hitting the fan, it's going to be either Steven Stamkos. If we're just talking about players on the ice, let's not talk about Trotz and Burnett. They're givens. The pitchforks are going to come after them after the first loss. But like, I feel like just players on the ice, it's Steven Stamkos and UC Saros. I feel like they're the top two punching bags that people just like go after. It doesn't matter if Stamkos scores a couple goals. I feel like they're always like going after these two guys. So for me, I went with
Stamkos. You had to steal mine.
Well, that's fair, but hey, there you go. But I'm going with Stamkos over Saros. I actually had to flip a coin on it almost. But I went with Stamkos
Yeah.
because I feel like he is definitely only going to be able to do so much at this point in his career.
I was actually thinking Saros for this one, and
that's a very fair choice.
The way that I thought about it is the way I interpreted the superlative is who is most likely to generate the hot takes.
That's a good one too.
And we saw a lot of it last year with UC Saros, which, we could spend an entire episode going through why the season went wrong for him. But, for a guy who'd been in the top 5 or top 6 of Vezina voting for 4 straight years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, oh, he's mid. Oh, he's too small. Oh, he's terrible. That contract is awful. Like, should have traded him.
Yeah. How are we talking about the contract? The contract is so irrelevant. It's such a bargain contract.
Yeah. Which is actually ironic.
It kicks in this year. But
given all the contracts that have been signed, he's like the 11th highest paid goalie right now.
It's like the least of our worries.
Yeah. So the way that I thought about it was, in terms of the hot takes, there's with someone like Stamkos, it's he's old and he's washed. There's one hot take there. Where Saros, I mean, the hot takes were just endless. And if he gets off to a slow start, which remind everyone, he's done that almost every season of his career is get off.
I'm really hoping that he's got a much better defense in front of him and he gets locked in. I'm hoping he gets a couple good starts under his belt. And he just kind of, like you said, he's streaky, of course. But I do feel like he's going to have a better disciplined defense in front of him.
Well, not an entire defense that's on crutches or in a medical bed.
Exactly. The thing I feel about Saros too is, unfortunately, last year I've conceded this all offseason. The thing about Saros last year he looked ordinary. He didn't steal any games really for us, and then there were some games where he was trying to steal the game in the first period or the second period. But then it just eventually the bottom caved out and he just couldn't do it anymore. And I'm not making excuses for him. He definitely wasn't his normal elite self, and I've conceded that. But he also wasn't nearly as bad as that's the thing you have to be careful about when it comes to goalies. And I know you know this, Boyd. I know a lot of hockey fans know this. I'm just trying to be very fair and very welcoming to people who are maybe don't watch hockey very often, or maybe they're casuals and they just watch the game every couple nights, or maybe they just catch the highlights and they watch the box score. Totally fair. Totally understandable. I'm not knocking you at all for that. We all have busy lives. I'm just saying goalies are some of the hardest players in all of sports to track when it comes to, you can't just look at their numbers in the box score and think, oh, this guy had a horrible game. He sucks. He gave up 4 goals. Get rid of him. It's not like looking at a quarterback who went 10 for 20 or 10 for 30 with 2 interceptions and threw for 60 yards and got sacked 6 times. I mean, yeah, there's variables there too, not to talk about football, but how good was the offensive line? Did the ball get tipped when he threw an interception? I get all that, but it's way easier to judge a quarterback. When you're talking about a goalie, there's so many deflected pucks. There's power plays. There's 5-on-3s. There's breakaways. There's how many great saves did he make before he finally did give up a goal that he had no chance at? I mean, it's just so much harder.
How many times last season? I mean, and I am in Bridgestone a lot. And how many times was there someone on the back door completely uncovered and just had a tap-in goal?
I saw it all the time.
It happened a ton. Yeah, I mean, goaltending is voodoo. We've all seen it. But I think, more than likely, Saros will be better, or at the very least, he'll be, closer to himself. And the defense in front of him should be better. But yeah, in terms of if things start poorly, in terms of on the ice, the hot takes that are going to get generated are going to be red hot towards him.
Oh, yeah. Especially going into year one of his contract, even though we agree that the contract is irrelevant. It's such a good contract. But they're going to point to that because it is an 8-year contract. Let's get to the positive here. Some positive superlatives. Want to get away from the negative here. Let's get to the player who I think is most likely to be called up first. This is a tough one because there's a lot of choices and options here. And it also, an extra layer to that is we don't even know who's going to make the roster out of training camp. So I'm talking about, these choices we're making here, just to set it out, is not who makes the team on training camp. I'm talking about who gets called up once the season starts. So it's kind of like a little tricky. I had to think about that myself. But for me, I went with Ozzy Weisblatt. I don't think he's going to make the roster right out of training camp. I think there's some guys they're going to just stick with first, just naturally speaking, because they've already got more experience or whatever. They're going to stick with status quo type of thing. But Ozzy Weisblatt's got to be like right there waiting in the wings. They love the way he plays. He's the type of guy that if your team is struggling and you need a jolt of energy, that's who you want to plug in there. You know he's hungry. You know he's going to do the right things. Does he have all the talent in the world? Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. He's going to come in there and do what you need for a young team who probably is going to have to rebuild this year. You want your Ozzy Weisblatts in the lineup. So while I don't think he's going to make it right out of training camp, I could be wrong. He might make it out of training camp, but for me, I think he's going to be one of the first ones to be called up. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think that's a solid choice. And obviously he got a taste of NHL action last season. I think the other probably first call up, and I think I go with this, not because he's the most skilled player, but I think it's the easiest role to fill if there's an injury or whatnot. And because Barry Trotz has spent the last year and a half talking about him, and that's Reed Schaefer.
Dude, me and you were on the same wavelengths. It's just we're picking the opposite of.
Yeah,
I was torn between those two guys.
I mean, obviously he was off to a real solid start to last season. I think he had 14 points in 9 games. So the offensive production was starting to tick up, and then unfortunately got hurt and was basically down the rest of the year. But, you think of someone who can fill a bottom 6 role, plus he's got the added, hockey mind advantage of being 6'2", 220, as opposed to, Ozzy Weisblatt, who, God bless him, is like 5'8", 160. So, I think in terms of if Schaefer has a solid camp, looks like he's back in shape, is back playing, I think the first time there's an injury in the forward core or, they need to bring someone up out of Milwaukee, you're thinking that more than likely someone from the bottom 6 is going to get elevated, so you're looking to fill that bottom 6 fourth line role more than likely. And I think a likely first choice there would be someone like Reed Schaefer.
Yeah. And that would be his NHL debut. If he was able to be called up. So I'm going to put it on the screen for our viewers on streaming viewers on Facebook and YouTube right now. Also, guys, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and also join the comments. But zoom in there. But yeah, Admirals. He's slated for the Admirals initially, but of course he is one of your top candidates that can make a name for himself in training camp for sure. I think there's a lot of open competition with the Predators right now in training camp, more than I can really remember personally when it comes to the wings, more than anything. There's a lot of just uncertainty going on, and I think they need to welcome that competition in training camp. If you're Barry Trotz and you're Andrew Brunette, you need to really welcome it. I get it. The top 6 is set. It's the status quo. That's how it always usually happens, but there should be some nuance, I guess you could say, when it comes to the bottom six right now. I'm all for it for sure. But just look at Reed Schaefer's numbers here and what his journey to the NHL, just on Elite Prospects is what I'm using here. But you've got he's spent the last 2 seasons with the Admirals, 63 games in 2023-24. He was part of the Matthias Ekholm trade. So you're looking to see what you got. This is why it takes so long to figure out the benefits of a trade in hockey when it comes to a trade like that, for sure. It's like we're still waiting to see Reed Schaefer, but you know what? We're excited about him. 63 games played for Milwaukee in 2023-24. This past season, 19 games. He was hurt last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. So after those first 19 games, yeah, he had an injury that kept him out the rest of the season.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So, but look at what he did before he got hurt. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good choice by you for sure, Boyd. I'm not sure if he's going to make it right out of training camp. Maybe he will. That'd be a really awesome story. I'm not against it at all. But like you said, for the sake of this superlative, it's who gets called up first. So I could see a situation where 10 games into the season, he gets called up for sure. He seems like a top candidate for sure to get his NHL debut this year. It almost feels inevitable that he's going to get his NHL debut this year. So let me get to the next one now. We're moving right along here, superlatives. Before we do that, because I am a little bit past when I should be doing my ad read, and we are a podcast this year. We've been selected to be a DraftKings Pick 6 sponsor. And so we're really honored to be chosen to tell you about the Pick 6 and give you a really awesome offer with this new DraftKings system that they have. It's really cool. It's called the Pick 6 app. And right now, football is back. And so is your shot at big wins with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats. So we're not even picking games, we're picking stats. From breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks, and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. So let me pull up my DraftKings app right now. I'm on the Pick 6. I'm looking at NFL. Everything is about this Thursday night, the Bills versus the Dolphins. You got Tua Tagovailoa. You got Tyreek Hill on here. So you can pick more or less. Tyreek Hill, 63.5 receiving yards. So it's basically like for all you bettors out there, it's like over and unders basically is how the Pick 6 app works. You pick more or less. So you could pick Tyreek Hill to go less or more, 63.5 receiving yards. You got Josh Allen, 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns, which obviously he's probably not going to catch a touchdown, but rushing touchdown, all you got to hit is more if you think he's going to rush for a touchdown on Thursday. It's that easy. Jalen Waddell, a really good receiver for the Dolphins. You can pick more and get a boost of 1.4 times if you pick for him to score a touchdown, just one touchdown, and you get a 1.4 times boost. So it's a really cool Tua Tagovailoa, over 238.5 passing yards, more or less. That's how it works. You pick 2. So Thursday Night Football, you can already use our promo code THPN there for the Dolphins and the Bills. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside in partnerships with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at Pick 6 shop.draftkings.com/promos. All right, so that's a really cool feature that DraftKings has for you guys to check out. And if you're a new customer, you got our promo code with THPN. So let me pull up the next superlative here as we move along here. And it's similar to the last superlative, but a little different. This is my superlative for Newcomer of the Year. And the way I mean this is not just getting called up, but you become a consistent newcomer of the Predators lineup. Like you stick. Like Zach, I would call Zachary LaRue a newcomer of last year. He stuck around. He came up and he stuck around. That's how I'm framing this. This is a little bit easier than maybe the other ones we did earlier. I feel like this one's pretty straightforward. But I've got Joakim Kimmel. I mean, he's the pretty obvious choice in terms of he's going to come in, and I feel like he's going to be in the lineup on opening night. I would be totally surprised if he's not. But maybe he's not. I don't know. I think he deserves it. But he could also be the first call-up if he doesn't make the lineup. But I think he's proven everything he can in the AHL. I really do. Like, I don't know how much more it's going to serve him to play more AHL time. I think he's ready for the NHL. And I think this Predators team needs a guy like Kimmel right now. With his shot and with his raw ability to score, I would love to see him on the second power play unit this year. He's my most likely newcomer. I think he's gonna stick, and he's gonna actually be a mainstay in the lineup by the time the season ends.
I mean, I think they sure need him to be. For one of the kind of longer term prospects. I mean, he's been around for a few years now. We've sort of been waiting for him to take that next step. I mean, he's always been productive at the AHL level and shown that he can put up some production there. But yeah, I think they're certainly hoping that he's ready to take that next big step. The one I'm going to say here is, maybe doesn't totally fit the bill because he did spend some time at the NHL level last year. But I'm still going to go with Adam Wilsby. I think
a good choice.
He had a short run in the NHL. Obviously, showed some a really mature game for someone who had not played much time at that level. And I think assuming he's healthy and ready to go, I could absolutely see a world where he claims a nightly spot in the lineup and is potentially a pretty impactful player from the defensive side, just with his just all around ability to skate, plays physical enough, handles the puck well, just a player that does a lot of things well. And when you look at, someone sort of claiming a spot at the NHL level, full time for the first time, I think Adam Wilsby really, really fits that bill as well.
And honestly, I mean, that's probably a better choice than what I just made, to be quite honest. But because if you think about it, if not for the bad luck with the injury, I think he was already on that pathway last year. Wilsby was. I mean, I loved what I saw from Wilsby in his limited time that he got, but he really looked like I remember watching Wilsby when his first few games and thinking, this guy looks like he's been in the league for 100 games. Like, I mean, his confidence level, his skating, his IQ on the ice, the decisions that often get overlooked in a game, like from a defenseman, just he was making the right pass. He was making the right choice. He didn't look like a liability out there at all. He looked super confident. The injury he had just really just like made us kind of wonder what could have been. But now he gets it again. He gets another chance this year. It's a very crowded defensive room, but also he's playing for a team that just needs something to go right for them when it comes to their younger talent. So I think he's got a great chance. I could see a scenario where both of these guys we picked here just now will be mainstays in the lineup by the time 2025-26 ends. And they're certainly very, very critical parts of this team's future in terms of the rebuild that they're likely going into. I mean, these two guys are so important. So good stuff there. Let's see. Moving along here. Let's get to the next superlative. The next one up here for me is this is like the inverse of your earlier choice, Boyd. This is like the opposite, but the player, we probably should have put them next to each other. The player who most likely gets an apology from fans, first, like fans are like, we're sorry. And we all know Predators fans are brutal. I mean, they hold grudges. I love them. I love my fellow Predators fans. I'm not knocking you, but man, you guys hold grudges. You guys don't want to forgive anybody. You never want to admit you're wrong about a player. But if we're going to show a little bit of humility as a fan base, guys, let's all show some humility this year, all right? Who's going to get the most likely to get an apology this year from fans? And I went the opposite of you. I went UC Saros. I don't think he's going to piss fans off. I think he's going to earn an apology for likely what you said already, Boyd. I think he's going to play better. I think he's going to be better. I think he's going to steal more games. And I think even the biggest UC Saros critics are going to have to eat some crow. They probably won't show their faces on social media, but deep down behind closed doors, they're going to hug their pillow at night and they're going to be crying a little bit and they're going to be thinking, I owe UC Saros an apology. He's actually not that bad. He's actually pretty damn good. And he's the only reason that our team is actually winning some games right now because he's done it before. So it's like he's done it for many years, actually. He had, like Boyd said earlier, he had a year where, he didn't do that as much. And everyone pounced on him. I think people are going to apologize to him this year. I think some people are, not everyone. But there's some stubborn ones out there. But I think some people are going to apologize to UC Saros this year.
So, we're just going to go in full opposites at this point because I'm actually going to say Steven Stamkos.
Oh, I love it.
And I get it. I get all the reasons why he's caught kind of some of the crap that he has, but some of his caliber of player and just there's obviously a player who wants to win and has won plenty.
And he's happy to be here. I mean,
I don't think he's going to look at last season and just go, "Nah, we're okay. That's just fine."
How does it not melt your heart when you see his cute little kid wearing a Preds jersey when he first signed up for the team? I mean, the guy loves Nashville, and that's coming from a guy who is treated like a god in Tampa. I live down here, man. That dude is these people down here still miss that dude, and they want him back so bad. They don't care how he played last year in Nashville. They want that guy back so bad. So yeah, I get it. I think he should get an apology. I'm not going to apologize because I'm never really was that mad at the guy last year. I was kind of worried that he was going to start off slow with the team, coming from a team of 17 years and all the emotions involved and how tumultuous that whole situation was to begin with. He definitely went to the penalty box too much. If I'm being objective here, I think that's an area he can definitely improve upon. There were some times, being a veteran that he is, that he took some bad penalties. I will be totally upfront with that one. I remember it clearly. He took too many penalties in bad situations. You don't want that from a veteran who's supposed to be a leader on the ice. And then I also think, and I don't know if that's a product of how the team was set up or just him in general being too timid and trying to set up his other teammates and trying to be the facilitator, but he could have shot a lot more. And
you could say that about the entire team, probably.
Well, of course. But I pulled this up. I shared it on X maybe a week or two ago, but I still couldn't believe this stat. Total shots taken, total shots attempted. He went down from 490 to 356.
Yeah.
From his last year in Tampa. That's And he played not that it matters really that much, but he played all 82 games for Nashville this past year, which is actually really impressive for a player of the age of Stamkos. But he played all 82 games last year. He played 79 games at age 33 in his last year with Tampa and still managed to put up 490 total shots. He put up 356. The crazy thing about the numbers when you really compare his last year with Tampa and his first year with Nashville, better, barely, but basically the same shooting percentages and crazy. He's always had a great shooting percentage. He is a career 16.6% shooting percentage.
Yeah.
That is insane. To play in the league for that long, that large of a sample size, we're talking 6,441 total shots attempted in the NHL, and the dude's carrying a 16.6 shooting percentage. That is insane. And he had a 15.5 shooting percentage last year. So it wasn't that he lost his shooting touch. It wasn't that he couldn't score goals. He didn't shoot enough. I mean, I know that seems very simple.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's not very analytically deep. But I mean, he only had 356 total shot attempts last year, which is by far the lowest he's had, not counting seasons where he played partial seasons where he really didn't play the whole year. I mean, it's crazy. So if you're Andrew Burnett, you have to be figuring out better ways to get Steven Stamkos the puck and in his wheelhouse this year.
Yeah, I think it was noticeable throughout, especially the first, 2 to 3 months of the season that, Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, they just kept deferring to each other.
Yeah, they didn't know who they wanted to shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, they all wanted to set each other up, and they all wanted to kind of, which there is a version of that is they wanted to get each other going, and like a shooter in basketball, you want to get a shooter some shots, see a couple go in, and they start making a few more, but at a certain point, it took them out of their game a little bit, and
it did, especially early on.
And I think when you look at someone like Stamkos and say, what's reasonable? And, what is reasonable is that he's had a full year now with this team. He'll have his second full training camp with almost the same roster, with the same coaching staff, more or less. And, there is a reasonable chance that now he just feels more comfortable with where he is. The team feels more comfortable together, and they will have a better understanding of how to unlock each other. Mm-hmm. I still think there's a giant gaping hole at the center position, but that's totally different.
Unavoidable.
That's a long rabbit hole we don't need to go down today.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of what is reasonable. I think it is reasonable.
We don't even know exactly where, not to go down the rabbit hole, but I just got to say this. We don't even know exactly where Stamkos is going to be lining up this year. I mean, he's probably going to be bounced back and forth, honestly, but we don't know where he's going to start off.
Yeah.
You're right.
We don't need to use the second line wing, but could he be up with Forsberg again? Sure. Could he end up playing center again? Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't really know. But I think that if Stamkos comes out and, as we both think he's going to do, he's going to be more comfortable. And I think one of the things that happened with the fans is they were very emotional about how that free agency was covered. There was a ton of hype around the Predators, and a large portion of the fan base, to no fault of their own, got super hype about this team in preseason. The exact opposite of where we're at right now. It's come full circle, I feel like. But to no fault of their own, the fans were super excited and they were super hyped. And you even saw some of these writers out here hinting at, the Predators could be a Western Conference Finals candidate and all this stuff. And all you saw was Stamkos and Marchessault. You saw all these guys, and the hype was real. And so it was easy to just go right to those guys, especially considering I think it took Stamkos 5 or 6 games before he even got his first point. And then I think he was like 10 plus games through, and he only had 1 goal and no assists. And then as the season went on, and I get it, like the team was already so far out of the standings that fans didn't even care anymore. They just looked at it like mop-up duty, and they were like, who cares that you scored a goal tonight? We suck. We lost. But like, I think what really hurt his reputation was when the games did matter and when the fans were checked in, he wasn't there. For not all of his own fault, obviously, but like that's where it came from. So this year, I feel like, as you're saying, let's all calm down. The expectations aren't as high. Stamkos is going into a second year. He's going to be more comfortable with his franchise. The way that guy's a future Hall of Famer and the way he still has the desire to play this game, I'm not worried for a second about him being prepared for this season and for him to probably come off one of the most difficult and disappointing years of his career. I hate to say it, but if he looks back on his illustrious career, he probably looks at last year as probably one of his most challenging as a player and playing for a team who finished 30th in the standings. It was his first year leaving Tampa Bay and having to second guess his decision to leave and all this stuff. So now he's got all that behind him. And now he can just do what he does, which is he's a Hall of Fame player. Whether you think he's washed or not, he is one of the best power play scorers of all time. I mean, and that's where I think he's going to earn an apology from fans. And he did it last year. He scored 14 power play goals last year. So, I mean, I think he could get an apology from fans. I think he's owed one. But we'll see if it actually happens. All right, here's my next one. My next one is most likely to get traded first. I got Michael Bunting. I think that's low-hanging fruit, but
it is low-hanging fruit.
But I took the easy. Hey, man, I took the easy choice. I mean, we don't have a lot of guys to trade anymore. I mean, I saw Luke Evangelista being rumored but I think that was more clickbait. The guys, people just having fun. I didn't see it from any. I'm not saying that people who wrote those articles are doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, like, most of the trade buzz articles I read were coming from sites that like to pitch trades and speculate. I didn't see any. There might have been 1 or 2 analysts who entertained the idea. I've seen Luke Evangelista linked as a possible fit for the Maple Leafs. But other than Evangelista, I can't really think of a lot of, like, big-time trade candidates for this team right now other than Michael Bunting.
Yeah, not really big time trade candidates. I mean, I think when you look at players most likely to get traded, I mean,
I'm saying first.
I mean, the other one that I would look at is maybe Michael McCarron, just because he was up there on a number of trade boards towards the end, towards the trade deadline last season, and as a guy who can primarily play center. He fills a depth role, can kill penalties, play physical, etc. Like that's, that is a valuable role for a team. And, as long as your expectations about certain things are managed, I think there is a world where a team looks at where they are a couple months into the season and says, something's missing, and looks at a player like Michael McCarron who can inject some size, physicality, penalty killing, and do it from the center position.
Yeah. I mean, he could definitely be traded as the season goes along, depending on where this team's at. It would also have to depend on what other centers in this organization are showing us, because, I mean, you trade away another center, I mean, you better be getting a really good young center in return. Let's say you trade McCarron to a playoff contender who wants a big body like McCarron, then they better be giving us someone in return who maybe is not ready right away to play center, but has a bright future. You better give me a 1-for-1 swap. Like if I'm giving you McCarron to help you now, you better be giving me something that can replace McCarron in the long-term future. But that's a good choice. But Michael Bunting's the low-hanging fruit, obviously. But the thing about Bunting is everyone already viewed it at the time as a future trade piece. He's a bulldog. He's a third line grinder. He might get some second line minutes. Who knows? It depends on how the lineup is constructed. But he's an agitator. He's gets in your grill. Bunting is probably going to play like his hair's on fire this year because he is going down journeyman status right now. And so he is definitely going to be trying out for his next team this year. That's probably how he feels behind closed doors. Like, hey, I'm going to show out as long as I can this year for this Preds team. And then I'm hoping that someone swoops in. And if you're Trotz and the Predators, you're hoping for that as well. Like you're like, all right, this guy needs to just show out, have a good year, and make that trade that involved Tommy Novak look valuable, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I like a lot of what Bunting does. I really do. I mean, I appreciate the way the guy plays. But again, he's so limited and he has a ceiling. And it's like, does he fit the long-term plans of where this franchise is heading? He doesn't. So you really need him to show out this year for obvious reasons. Increase that trade value. See what you can get out of him. I'm not going to even speculate what you can get out of him until we play the games. So I'm just going to stay away from that because there's no way to know. But as of right now, probably not a lot. But that's why you play the games. Let's go to the next one here. Let's move along. I only got one more left, and it's player most likely to be waived first. So he makes the team and gets waived. And this was a tough one too, but I went with Jordan Oesterle. I think he makes the team because he's a veteran, or even if he doesn't play, even if he's not in the lineup for the first game. I think he's just going to get through training camp and he's going to get waived. I think he is like the easy one to move on from, not because I think he's a bad player. I actually think he's a solid depth defenseman for any organization. I could even see him getting claimed if you waived him. My point is, at 33 years old, and when I look at the stable of defensemen that the Predators have, both in their prospect pool and even on their lineup right now in their training camp roster, he's the easy one to be like, thank you for your service, sir. We appreciate you. We're going to waive you. And if you get claimed, no harm, no foul. So I think it's Jordan Oesterle.
Yeah, I think the sort of analog to Oesterle is Andreas Englund.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well.
I mean, very similar circumstance. I think,
but younger.
People were
a lot younger.
He is a little bit younger,
and he hits more.
And I think a lot of people were probably fairly surprised that he was signed to an extension. Again, just you sign depth for cheap, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that also puts him in a place where, assuming he gets beat out by a Willsby, a Stasny, that group, he could be one of the first ones up to be moved on.
He scored 3 goals last year, which is random, right? But
he had a few fights that were things of beauty. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you're talking about England.
England, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was referring to the 3 goals. I was referring to Oesterle, how he scored 3 random goals that you don't expect. I mean, it was late in the season where obviously the Predators were way out of it, but it's just random goals you don't expect from a guy. But so I appreciate Oesterle, the player. He's got a decorated career. He's played over 400 NHL games. So mad props to him. This is no disrespect to him. I just think that he's going to be the odd man out in a Preds locker room, in a Preds deep defensive room. I just don't see how you make room for him over the other options they have. So that is it for the Preds superlatives. We're going to share some clips tomorrow to get the debate going. The chat room is super quiet tonight, but that's fair. That's understandable. But we are going to hit some rapid fire topics now to get through the rest of episode 275 of Catfish and Ice presented by DraftKings. And the next thing we're going to get into real quick is the one area that the Predators can improve upon the most to turn this ship back around to the right direction. I'm not saying that this one area will make them a playoff contender, but if you fix this area, then man, you give yourself a fighting chance to be much better than you were last year. And for me, it's a pretty broad area, but for me, I feel actually pretty hopeful about it. And it's kind of what you touched on earlier, Boyd. I think that it's having a much more stable defense, just a more disciplined defense, a defense that makes more of the right decisions. Now, of course, injuries can happen and then it throws everything off. But just looking at the defense that they have right now and the depth that you mentioned, rotating guys in and out from game to game, assuming we'll have to see how they're going to construct these lines, these pairings. But I mean, what do you think? Let me ask you that first. You think it's Yossi and Haig on the top pairing to start off?
I think that's probably what they'll start with. I think they'll try Yossi Haig. I think they'll probably try Yossi Perbix just to see who finds some chemistry, and then sort of cycle down from there. I think in a perfect world, you're probably doing Yossi Haig, and you sort of see how that goes. But I think there's probably, because there's two new players in the top six of the defense, I think you're going to see throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, you're going to see a lot of experimentation.
Yeah, understandable. But like what I'm getting at with this most improvement thing is, I know probably fans don't want to hear this, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I think that this team has to go back to the basics. And I know how Trotz thinks. Trotz is an old school guy. And that's why he went out and got Perbix and Haig. And you can disagree with the moves and think that these are mid defensemen and they're really not that good. But I think that Trotz values strong defense in front of your goaltender. He actually said it this offseason. Whether you agree with him or not, he's already pretty much said this. He said that basically, I'm not saying this verbatim, but he basically said that Saros was kind of a product of what was around him, and we didn't do him any favors. And so I think he wants to rectify that, and he wants to have a brick wall of a blue line. And then you're just hoping in a perfect world that some of your offensive players, your forwards like Marchessault and some of these other guys, really just have better years in year two with Nashville, or you get a young player who pops off and comes out of nowhere. You're asking for a lot of things to come together at once. But if I have to pick one thing that we can try to really fix this year, and it's going to really get us off to a good start, at least get us back in the right direction, it's having a much more disciplined and harder defense to score against. You protect your Vezina caliber goaltender, and then you let Saros do the rest. And then you let everything take care of itself. I think Trotz also mentioned this offseason that if you got to be a winning hockey team, you've got to be hard to score against first. I think he said something along those lines. But you got to be a very difficult team to score against, and that's a great blue line and a great goaltender. And I actually, call me optimistic here, but I actually think they could do that this year. Now, I don't know how much they're going to – I don't know if they might be one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. So, are they going to have to go back to the old days where they have to win games 2-1 or 3-2? That's probably not a great formula to be a playoff team, so I'm not going to go that far. But I do think they're going to be a much improved team, and if they get there, it's going to be because they have a much better defense. What about you, Boyd? Would you agree with that, or do you have another area that you think they could realistically
I
improve.
I think that's part of it. I mean, I think there's to me, there's one thing to me that stood out so significantly from 2 years ago to last year, and that was their ability to transition the puck out of the defensive zone through the neutral zone and start the offense. And part of the reason why the work in front of UC Saros went so bad is they couldn't get the puck out of their own zone, and they couldn't get it up the ice to where some of these skilled players were in positions to score off the rush, not have to build this controlled cycling offense, which is a challenge when you don't have the most skilled centers. And if they can do better at, when they retrieve the puck, being able to get it up ice, get it to their forwards with speed, to be able to create some of those attacking chances, the best way to help your defense is not have to play it so much. And if they can get the puck out and not make it such a struggle to get out of the defensive zone and not just get held in over and over and over, I think that is one just super significant change that would not only make things easier in front of UC Saros by just not giving up a barrage of shots, but also really giving you an opportunity to play higher percentage offense where you have a better chance to get some of those easier odd man rush goals, breakaways, etc., where you're not having to grind the goals out. And which, let's be fair, most of their offensive unit is not grind out goals type of players. So you want to be able to find ways to kind of unleash them a little bit and get them rolling. And that really starts with, you've got to be able to get the puck out of your defensive zone with control, with speed, and get it to the players that can go make plays.
And I think about guys, I'm thinking about guys like, I'm really thinking about Brady Shea's the first defenseman I think of in that regard, being a player who can get the puck out of the zone, and you're counting on him. He had a lot of giveaways last year that just stick out to me. He had some lapses. I'm not trying to be unfair to him because it wasn't just him. I'm just saying
they spent a lot of time just throwing the puck into space.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Most of the time, that's just a turnover.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. Let's wrap up 275 real quick with some NHL rapid fire storylines. I've got 3 big ones that are pretty current that have kind of come out this week, actually. And then we're also going to talk Vandy for a little bit because I'm a Vandy fan. And I'm going to talk about Vanderbilt on this podcast. But I'm hype right now. All these Vols fans that are listening to this podcast are laughing at me, but it's okay. Let's get the NHL storylines up there. There's a lot going on right now, but as the season gets closer. But the top one here, Matthew Tkachuk out until December, it's been reported, for the Panthers. My first thought is, does it matter that much? Because the Panthers are such a stacked team. And I mean, he's a very important player, but that team is ridiculously stacked. They play with an edge. They have Paul Maurice is just one of my favorite head coaches. And, I don't know. You got Bob in net. You got, they've got lines 1 through 4 is just so good. They just come at you. They play a rugged physical game, but they also got goal scorers. They got everything. So even if Matthew Tkachuk's out till December, I think they're still going to be a major Stanley Cup contender.
Even if they won 2 straight cups where he wasn't 100% for either one of them. So
yeah,
there's definitely that. But yeah, they are definitely at this point better served just letting him get healthy. They've got plenty of talent to keep them
in
the mix, and it's been proven time and again that you don't have to be the number 1 seed to win. In fact, a lot of the times the number 1 seed doesn't win.
Yeah.
So, they're much better off just making sure he's as close to 100%. Obviously, he's going to want to be 100% for the Olympics.
It's definitely smart.
That's going to be such a big deal. So, yeah, I mean, it's and just from a league perspective and the sport overall,
And last year he was limited to 52 games last year with a torn abductor muscle, sports a hernia. And I mean, they don't know for sure.
He's one of the biggest stars. And so from a league perspective and going into the Olympics where the spotlight is so bright, which will then turn and, create the runway to the playoffs, you don't need him being and this again, purely from a league perspective, you don't need him being a star during football season. You need him being a star when football season ends. So yeah, he just needs to get healthy.
Yeah, I'm reading the NHL.com article here, and Paul Maurice was quoted as saying about his condition last year against the Oilers in the Stanley Cup, scoring the cup-winning goal, gave the Panthers a 2-0 lead with 47 seconds left in the first period in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. But he said he wasn't sure whether he would be ready for the start of the playoffs even a few days before they began. He was a mess, quote unquote, what Paul Maurice said. That's the medical term. He was a mess. So that's pretty cool, though, how tough of a guy that we've known Matthew Tkachuk is. But also you throw in the element of playing for Team USA in the Olympics. And, yeah, this guy's got to get healthy. So it's smart that they're holding them out. But let's get to the next one here, next storyline. Sidney Crosby is rejecting the trade rumors, the buzz articles you're seeing out there. I've seen him linked to the Canadians. But he said, this is where I want to be. And – I mean, the Penguins are obviously in similar territory to the Predators in terms of possible rebuild territory. They're not the cup contending team that they once were, but it is kind of cool to see Crosby at least now saying that he is loyal to the Penguins. Why would he? Why would he not be?
He is rejecting the trade rumors right now.
And that's true.
As of today. If they are in last place come January 1st, the heat of that is going to pick up.
And you think that Stamkos looked weird in a Predators jersey? Just wait until if we see Crosby in anything other than a Penguins jersey. That's going to be super weird. All right, here's the other one, and I've seen a lot of conflicting reports about this. Maybe you can fill me in, Boyd, because I haven't completely research this, but Kaprizov turns down a massive contract. I've seen that he wants $17 million or something crazy. I don't know if that's like some type of
the contract he reportedly turned down. And obviously neither the team or the player have explicitly confirmed this, but it's been among sort of the national writers enough, but he reportedly turned down a contract that was 8 years at $16 million per. And wow.
But there's a lot of there's a lot of insiders that are like arguing over this too, like saying like, oh, like stop speculating. I'm seeing this from Athlon Sports. Pierre LeBrun basically said this is not cordial. LeBron sends clear message on Kirill Kaprizov's wild contract situation. So there's like a lot of like conflicting information. But I mean, it's kind of crazy because
it started with, if I remember correctly, it started with a Russian publication was the first one to sort of leak that this had happened. And I think there's been enough confirmation from, North American writers that seems to think it is a real thing. Now, the reasoning of and what's going to happen from here and are they contentious or are they going to potentially trade him is, I think that a lot of that is just speculation at this point.
But that's what he's saying. Yeah, I misinterpreted it. He's saying this is not cordial in terms of the relationship right now between Kaprizov and the Wild general manager.
If I'm if I'm, wild GM Bill Guerin, I'm not thrilled that my star player just turned down the richest contract in league history. So I would certainly imagine there's some potentially hurt feelings at the moment. But
here's a quote here's a quote
go
I'm
ahead.
reading from here's a quote I'm reading from this article I'm reading on Athlon Sports from Bill Guerin, the GM for the Wild. He says, quote, "We can cut to the chase. Look, I don't know where this stuff comes from. I know two things. That info didn't come from us, and it didn't come from Kirill's agent. I don't know where it came from." So this is like definitely some distractions you don't want to be dealing with if you're the Minnesota Wild right now. But also I want to share this from LeBron real quick. It says, "I don't think the Wild want to negotiate against themselves either. They feel they made an unbelievable offer at 8 years, $16 million a year. I don't know how much more they can move off here, but they may have to." And again, the question is, does Kaprizov want to stay or not? The Wild believe there's a chance he still does. I mean, this whole story is going to be pretty fascinating to watch. And then, of course, we still have McDavid. I mean, there's this year in terms of contract speculations and all this stuff, free agency is going to be setting up to be a crazy one because this past year was kind of a dud. Free agency this past year was kind of a dud. There wasn't a lot of big time, heavy hitting stuff that happened.
Well, and I think, as sort of the way to think about it is none of these things are a story until they become a story. So now,
everyone's dying. And everyone's dying.
Not a story.
And everyone's dying for a story right now because it's. Yeah. I mean, we're just now coming out of like the quietest time of the year. Everyone's desperate for an article. Everyone's desperate for to write something that's going to make people interested. And I mean, unless you're just the most diehard hockey fan, a lot of people tune out this time of year when it comes to hockey until the first game happens. They're kind of starting to get interested now because training camp's here. But all right, so been a good episode. We're coming up on 2 hours, so we're going to round it out here shortly. My battery's about to die on my laptop, so I really got to get this out quick. But I'm going to tell you because I don't have it plugged in. But I'm just going to say I am a diehard Vandy fan. It's been well documented on this show. I'm not going to go into why, but Boyd is a fellow Vandy fan, and I'm going to ask him right now, and then I'm going to give my answer. Are you buying the hype? They're 3-0. They beat South Carolina. They beat Virginia Tech, both on the road. I don't want to hear from Vols fans about, oh, well, those teams suck or whatever. I don't care. You play the games. You got to win the games, and those are two tough places to play. And you look at Vandy's schedule. I read it today. They are favored in 5 of their remaining games. Now, I'm not saying you always win the games you're favored in, but I don't know if I ever remember, other than when Vandy plays like an FCS school, Vandy is very rarely ever favored in a game. So the fact that they're favored in a couple SEC games remaining is mind-boggling. They're ranked number 20 in the country, which I'd rather them not be ranked. But here's why I am buying the hype. It's not even Diego Pavia. That dude I love that dude. I hope he can play for 10 more years. I hope he just keeps getting more eligibility. But it's not even just Diego Pavia. I'm going to be very old school when I say this. It is Clark Lee. I mean, this dude is I love watching his pregame speeches. I love the way he carries himself. I love the way he talks to his young men. I love that he's an alumni of that school. You can see it come out of his pores how much he cares about that school. And I had a friend of mine who's not a Vandy fan ask me, "Are you afraid of Clark Lee getting plucked away like James Franklin was?" And I was like, "Don't even compare the two."
Yeah.
No offense to James Franklin, but he wasn't an alumni.
We knew going in James Franklin was a climber.
This was a stepping stone for him.
Yeah.
And kudos to James Franklin. I mean, those are some of the most exciting Vandy teams that I've ever seen in my lifetime of 37 years on this earth. But I don't know how this season's going to end for Vandy. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, we're going to the college football playoff." I'm not that unrealistic. But what I will say is Clark Lee is definitely building something special. He's building a solid foundation. And a lot of it has to do with the way he just cares about his players and he and he cares about this program so much. I mean, you saw the guy; he's cried after wins. When they beat Alabama last year, the dude was shedding tears. I mean, the guy truly has the emotions of caring for this team. And also, NIL has been the ultimate. I wasn't sure how NIL was going to affect a team like Vandy, but it's turned out to be a big boost for them.
I mean, Vanderbilt was one of the first schools from a football perspective to hire literally a general manager. You know, their football program, the head coach is not necessarily the head of the program, and neither is the AD. They have a general manager, and a lot of what his job is managing NIL, managing the roster, identifying talent that they can bring in, and so they've done a great job on that front. And I think where you've seen a big difference with Vandy, I mean, because Vandy's had some good quarterbacks over the years. They've had good college quarterbacks, and a couple that have gone on to at least spend time in the NFL, not even, Jay Cutler notwithstanding. But this team on the road, their defense has stomped people out in the second half.
They're winning in the trenches is what I've
just absolutely stomped people out. And they've had, as a team, just a killer instinct to say, we're not letting you come back in this game. We're just gonna go out there and put it away, which is, for those of us that have lived in the pain for quite some years, it is quite enjoyable to be a part of right now.
It is. I am. I'm not worried so much about this team because I know how Clark Lee has his guys dialed in, but I mean, they're playing Georgia State this week, and the hype is so high. And historically speaking, I hate to say this, but previous Vandy teams would lose a game like this.
You mean like last year?
Well, not just like last year. I just mean in general.
Literally lost to Georgia State.
But I mean, like, also true, but also like just in general, they've dropped games like this in their history.
Yes.
Like they don't stay focused. They've pulled off some upsets in their history. It's not like they've never beaten SEC teams. They always mix in one SEC upset every year, even in the years where they were horrible. The problem is they always screw up somewhere, and then they just let everything fall apart. They've got to really come in this week. These next 2 weeks, they play non-conference teams that they're heavily favored in. And they need to treat these teams. I know it's cliche, but they need to treat these teams like they're Alabama, like they're Tennessee, like they're LSU. And if they do that, they're going to be just fine because they've got one of the most talented teams they've had in a long time. And that's why, again, Clark Lee, that dude, I'm not worried about him as a coach. I know he's going to have these guys focused. I know that they're going to be ready to play. They got to stay hungry. They can't buy in. I think Clark Lee, you can go watch the Vanderbilt football official account. They shared like a 5-minute video of the South Carolina game and the locker room speeches that Clark Lee made. And one of his main slogans in those locker room speeches was "Don't buy into the noise. Don't buy into the outside noise. Stay hungry. Focus and execution" is his 2 words that he uses constantly. Focus and execution. And he says that if you focus and if you execute, we're going to win the day. That's what he says. It's that simple. It's that old school.
Let's be right. He also in that pregame speech said it's parents' weekend. Let's send them home early, which
yes, I love that.
Oh my.
He said that a lot as well.
And he came back post-game and was like, look at that, boys. We sent him home early.
Yeah, and he's a player's coach. I mean, I think the players love playing for him because he was a player and he did it. And he played for that school, I think, when they were not a very good team.
Oh, terrible. Awful when he played there.
And I think that's why he shows so much emotion when they're winning these big games and pull off these big upsets, is because he is so emotionally invested in this program and this school. And also, I want to give
he lived through some of the worst of it.
And to wrap up this podcast, I know we're a hockey podcast, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to give a lot of love to Candace Story-Lee, the AD for Vanderbilt. She deserves – we can't talk about Vanderbilt football and how great they're doing and not bring up the extraordinary job that the athletic director of Vanderbilt athletics is doing, and that is Candace Story-Lee. I love that woman. Every time she speaks, I want to listen to her. And again, just like Clark Lee, that woman cares so much about that program, and she is a big difference maker as well, because it's not just the football program, it's the men's basketball team, it's the women's basketball team, they have women's volleyball now, and I've been actually following their account. Yeah, they're good. They finally got SEC volleyball team back on campus. And I mean, I'm all down for volleyball. First of all, it's a lot of fun to play, but it's also actually a very fun sport to watch too. And so, like, I mean, just kudos to the athletic director, Candace Story-Lee, for transforming that entire athletic department. So anyway, we took a little bit of an off ramp there because we have a little bit of Vandy ties here with our with your two hosts here tonight. So until then, Boyd, thank you so much. Boyd joined the podcast tonight on very short notice. I asked him last night. Co-host Max Greenberg has got some stuff going on this week, so he could not do an episode. So I was like, I've got my perfect fill-in, and that is Boyd. And he jumped in. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much, man.
Anytime. You got it.
All right. So that has been episode 275 of Catfish and Ice. Probably the next episode we get out for you guys, we will have some preseason hockey to talk about. We'll have some training camp storylines to talk about. So until then, everyone enjoy the rest of their week. Really appreciate you so much. And if you watch it on YouTube, please hit subscribe, throw us a comment. And until then, we will see you soon, everybody. Take care.